Let's talk to Brendan O'Neill, editor of Spiked Online. Brendan, another day, another attack on the horrible, horrible, nasty white people that have been in charge of this country for so long.
It's crazy, and it's getting crazier all the time. I thought the British Library thing I thought was most striking, because what you have here is, the white woman who is the chief librarian there, essentially just attacking white people and saying that racism is a creation of white people, and that's why the British Library has to decolonize itself, which basically means cleanse itself of evil, remove its Eurocentric maps, maybe think about what kind of artifacts it has, take down the busts of its founding fathers. I mean, there's a kind of mania spreading through our institutions. And, what on earth this has to do with the killing of George Floyd thousands of miles away is a mystery to everyone. It's just this kind of orgy of self-loathing that has gripped some of the leading institutions in this country.
That is exactly what it is. It's an orgy of self-loathing. I mean, again, it's also, blatantly, patently untrue that white people created racism. And obviously the implication there being only white people are racist. I'm sorry, she clearly has not looked at, Japan or China's policies on immigration. Indeed, in the Middle East. And indeed, black racism against other races as well. And within the black communities, in terms of people with darker or lighter skins. It is absurd, this idea that only white people are racist and that white people invented it. I mean, again, when someone who's supposed... I'd like to think that the chief librarian of the British Library is a really clever, well-educated person. And when you realise that they're actually stupid, hi, Liz Jolly, if you think that... You must be... I don't care how many degrees you've got. You must be a fairly stupid person, because there's no evidence to back that up. But again, this idea for a major cultural change at the institution, this is all based on the idea that when you have an institution like the British Library, so much of that is going to be British heritage in terms of British culture, British literature, and British academia. Given that this is, even today, a vastly majority white country, 85-90% of the country still, I think 90%, still white. And for our entire history, until even just 10, 20 years ago, 95% plus white. Why is everyone so surprised that so much of our cultural heritage is from white people? Because I don't think people in Nigeria or in Kenya or in India or in China are really surprised that the vast majority population of their countries dominates their cultural history heritage.
Well, that's exactly right. It's called the British Library. It contains a lot of British history, British documents, British manuscripts. That's what it's there for. It's such a bizarre phenomenon. But I think you're right, that the idea that white people are the kind of source of all evil and the only true racists, and that they are the creators of racism, what it really shows, there's this anti-whiteness outlook that is gripping certain people in society. This idea that being white is some kind of original sin, and if you're born white, you are necessarily a bad person. You're a privileged person. You hold your views because you're white. You behave in the way you do because you're white. And this is actually a new form of racism. That's what racists used to say about black people, that they were all the same. They all, were born in a particular way. And the thing is, the trend that I find most irritating today is this anti-whiteness, this white self-loathing, which usually comes from upper-class liberals who think it's very fashionable to be down on whiteness. And I think most ordinary people are looking like people at the British Library and other institutions and just thinking they've gone insane.
And I think those people are quite right to make that judgment. I really do. And that's what's interesting, is none of this stuff is coming from ordinary people of colour in this country. The average black man or woman or Asian man or woman is not walking around hating white people, not blaming white people for everything, not thinking everyone's white privileged and all of that. Just like the majority of white people in this country, as every poll has shown, most people in this country view people based on their individual character, on what they do and what they say, and they judge people according to those things and not the utterly irrelevant pigmentation in their skin.
Exactly right. And that's what's really annoying about identity politics and all this new wokeness. It's constantly trying to cajole us into thinking in racial terms. It wants us to judge people by their color rather than their character, and to constantly obsess over who's white, who's black, how you should relate to someone of a different race. It's really turning the clock back on all the great gains that have been made over the past 50 or 60 years when racism has declined, thankfully. But, I think the reason ordinary black people are not down with this stuff at all is because it's so patronizing to black people as well. The idea that black school kids can't possibly understand Chaucer or Shakespeare unless a grime artist or someone else is communicating it. I'm sorry, but I think that's racist.
It's having lower expectations of black kids. It is, by definition, insulting.
And the whole point of that great literature and the whole point of good education is that you enthuse children, whatever their backgrounds, whether they're rich or poor, white or black, you enthuse them to embrace great culture, expand their minds and think more deeply. Every kid is capable of that, and it's racist to suggest that they aren't.
The great Catherine Birbal Singh, of course, who started her own school when she was just frustrated with the low expectations and doing amazing things for kids from very poor backgrounds, all free school meals, immigrant families and the like, who are all getting incredible grades as a result of her high expectations. So this idea, she always says, having lower expectations of her kids because they're black or immigrant or come from poorer backgrounds. And she says, you're just condemning them to a lesser life by telling them that they're not capable of doing what other people will. The only things I would pick up on, we need to stop calling these people progressive or woke. They're not progressive.
Right.
I do it myself. I'm thinking we need to just call them what they are. I mean, they're fascists. I'm sorry. That's a word that gets thrown around far too often. But these people are racist and fascists, and we need to call them what they are.
I like the word reactionary for these people. I mean, I use the word woke now largely because it's become an insult, but they're absolutely not progressive. I think you're completely right about that. And whenever they present themselves as progressive, I say, listen, no, you're regressive because you are regressing society. You're taking us back to a time when everyone thought constantly about race. You're taking us back to a time when black kids were seen as less educationally capable than white kids. That's regressive. What we want to do is bring society together, have trust in all communities to be able to achieve great things.
Absolutely. Brendan O'Neill, always talking sense, editor of Spiked Online.